Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am going to be creating a very simple and an easily one layer card. Now this is a rose stencil which I have used many times before. I love the stencil and it's very versatile. I actually have a kind of a larger video coming up as well, showing how we can use stencils in different ways than what we are kind of used to. So that will be coming up soon. But for today, I'm going to put down this non-stick mat and then I am going to actually go on a piece of watercolor paper today. Now this is the Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide, and because I'm going to be doing a little bit of blending, I am going to use the watercolor paper, but it's not necessary. I'm going to cut out of some masking paper using these infinity dies from Hero Arts. And the reason why I love these infinity dies so much is that the circles are so close together. The gap between them and the sizes is really, really close together. And often in sets, it's usually about double that size. So that's the main reason why I like the Hero Arts ones. Other than that, any circle dies will work absolutely. And especially for this project here where I've chosen 3 circle dies that aren't sitting next to each other, then any circle dies would be perfect. So anything you have in your stash. I've popped the 3 circle dies down and now I'm going to blend over using that Hickory Smoke and just a mini ink blending tool. I'm doing a really, really light application of the grey, and you can see there before I even started, I actually got rid of some of the ink that was on my blending tool because I just wanted it to be really, really light. So you can kind of see there I have covered up all of the area and there's a pretty even amount of ink on there. I'm going to bring in a brick stencil just to have a little bit of kind of interest and texture in the background so it's not quite so flat. So I'm going over with the exact same Hickory Smoke ink, and I am trying to go over a little bit lightly still. I don't re-ink my blending tool too much at all because I don't want there to be too much ink, but because my stencil is a little bit shorter, I'm going to shift it up and match it up just the best I can. Doesn't have to be perfect, and finish off that top little bit up there. Then once I take the stencil off, you can see that the bricks are quite clear and pronounced in the background. So what I'm actually going to do is take my mini ink blending tool and go over it again just really lightly in the background, and you'll be able to see, I'll show you in a second, how it just softens the edges of all of those versus the top part, which I haven't done up there. So I've done the bottom part and not the top, and you can see that it just brings them into the background a little bit more. So once I have done that, I'm kind of finished my background here. As I said, this is a very sort of clean and simple card created using just a couple of stencils. And then there's a couple of little bits at the end, the finishing touches, which you could choose whether to do or not. I'm going to use some squeezed lemonade and some mustard seed, which are 2 Distress Oxide inks. And I just wanted to show you this quick tip here. This is the scrap masking paper that was left over from when I cut out my 3 circles earlier on. I never throw out these scraps because these are perfect for masking off bits and pieces on stencils. So I just have a pile of these on my desk and I reach for them all the time. Instead of using the low-tack tape or getting out some new pieces, I guess I kind of feel like I'm making the most of all of my supplies this way. So I have gone round because all I want is the rose out of the middle of the stencil, and I'm going to put some of the squeezed lemonade in the middle and the mustard seed around the outside. Now you could definitely just choose to use one colour here, and that would work perfectly fine. You could do light, just a really light application in the middle and then much darker around the outside. I chose to do 2, but as I said, 1 would be perfectly fine. I'm going to wipe that off with a dry cloth, and then that is my first circle complete. I am just going to mask off that little design there, just that one little edge piece, and pop it in. Then I'm going to mask off another little kind of swirl. So this little circle here will be full of all swirls and twirls that are around the outside of the rose. So as I said, I'm just masking them off, then finding where they'll fit on my piece. And I'm using some finger daubers to do this just because it gives me the best control when trying to be selective about the bits that I get through a stencil. So I just repeated a couple of little pieces on there, and then I found a tiny little swirl here which I'm going to add 3 of, and that will fill up this kind of second circle or partial circle on my card front. Then the bottom one there, I am actually going to mask off 3 of the leaves here. I'm only going to use 2 of them, but there is 3 that you could use. And I'm just going to pop these in the bottom circle. Now I do end up using the darker ink towards the bottom and the lighter ink towards the top. But again, this is just personal choice. Now I wanted to make this card kind of a yellows and greys card because I feel like those two go together really well. And I've had a really big fun time using my stencils recently and rediscovering them and getting the most out of them, I guess. I go through my supplies often and make sure that I am just keeping the supplies that I am using because I do have a really small crafting space in my house. I just have a tiny little writing desk that kind of folds down, and that is my craft space. So I finished the 3 leaves here on the front of the card. I am going to add those dots around the outside just because I felt like it added a little bit more to the little circle down the bottom, and then that will finish off the 3 designs for the card front. Now the leaves down the bottom kind of looked a little bit plain, but I'm going to fix that later on and let the ink dry a little bit first. So I have this clearly besotted stamp set here, the Happy Birthday one. This is really old, and I would just use any Happy Birthday stamp set that you have. Absolutely anything, and I'm sure if you go through your stash that you'll find one that works really well for you. I do actually try really hard to use products in my videos that I think that you will have already at home in your stash. For example, most people would probably have some sort of Happy Birthday stamp. So the point is not to worry about which company or which brand or which site that I purchased it from. I hope that you are able to use the things that are already at home, and of course I really do appreciate it when you use the links and purchase things from me. That helps me out so much, especially during this really difficult time. I appreciate it to no end. But as I have seen through my Facebook group, where I have lots of amazing people who are posting their creations, they take the videos that I make and absolutely make them their own and their own version. So I love seeing that so much, and I appreciate it. So there is a link to my Facebook page down in the description box below this video. And I do try and leave links to the items and the products that I use. But as I said, some of them are too old or not available or just not there anymore. So I do my best when making videos for you guys. So anyway, I have heat embossed the happy sentiment there on the front. I am cutting down my card panel because it started off at 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I need it to be a little bit smaller because I'm going to pop it on a card base that is going to be that size. To get this all lined up perfectly, I always use this method where I have the 4 pieces of tape. I take off one at each of the corners and have a piece in the middle that I take off completely. Then I'm able to line it up perfectly, and when it's all lined up, I press down the middle part, that piece of tape that is exposed in the middle, and then I remove all 4 sides, and that way I can always get perfect placement and even placement around the outsides. Now here's my trick. My leaves looked a little bit boring, so I'm going to use a white gel pen just to put in some very basic veins into the leaves, and it kind of brings them to life a little bit more and makes them not quite so plain. There are lots of different things that you could do here, but as I said, I was keeping this card pretty plain and simple and just enjoying keeping it that way and not going all out. The only thing that I'm going to do to add onto this card here is that I need to add the birthday part of the sentiment, so I've just heat embossed that on some black cardstock. I'm going to cut a little angle there and then use some reverse tweezers to pop it down onto my card front. I've popped it up on some foam tape just for a little bit of interest, so this card is not completely one layer, but you could definitely make it one layer. Then I have a couple of different size gems here from Alina Crafts. I think they're 4 and 6 mils maybe, but don't quote me. I'm using a wax pencil and some Ranger Multimedium in the matte finish, which is inside that glue bottle to adhere them down. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this card, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!